Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of The Think Tank. Today I want to talk about something very important, and that's the debt ceiling. This is all over the news, and there's debate in the political arena. Republicans, Democrats are talking about either raising the debt ceiling, talking about cutting spending. And it's kind of interesting that not much is spoken about this, that the debt ceiling has actually been raised before. It's been raised 74 times since 1962. So a lot of people on the left and liberals, they're saying, hey, the right-wingers and Republicans are just making a deal out of this. They've done it in the past, they're just doing it for political reasons. And the Democrats are complaining, we're not going to be able to pay out Social Security checks, we're going to have to default on our creditors. So they're using these fear tactics. And I think that's such a ridiculous argument. See, first of all, the debt ceiling being raised in the past is different than now. Because most of those times, we weren't facing the crisis that we are now. I mean, let's face it, gold has made an all-time high, all right, past few days. Silver has made an all-time high in the past few months. It's trending back upward again. Commodity prices across the board have made all-time highs in recent times. Gas prices are high, and there's a reason for that. We're looking at serious inflation here. And it's not just a matter of raising the debt ceiling. It sounds like so innocent and so easy to do. You have to understand, raising the debt ceiling means more printing of money. And this is an economic imbalance, and it's doomed to fail. Because in order to have a monetary policy of increasing money, you have to have a certain amount of goods that are available to meet that criteria. You see, the way economics works, no matter what they teach you in colleges, you have to have a certain amount of money chasing a certain amount of goods, but it has to be your goods, not goods that come from overseas, because then what you have to trade is paper for goods. And we have that luxury because we have the reserve currency of the world. But there's only so long that could work. The debt gets to a point, and the inflation gets to a point where it just doesn't pay anymore for the creditors to use the dollar. The dollar just continues to lose value as they print more money. There's not enough goods to meet the dollars to chase those goods. So, see, the real reason is that it's about jobs. And that's the funny thing. I'm looking at some of these mainstream media people talking, you look at the mainstream media, and most of them are just sing the same tune. They're saying, hey, why are these politicians, whether it's Republicans, Democrats, they're talking about the debt ceiling? What about jobs? We're hemorrhaging jobs. You look at the unemployment reports, more unemployment. And they're saying, hey, that's what they should really focus on. Don't focus on the debt ceiling. Focus on jobs. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, hello. It's all connected. Because what the debt ceiling does is the government continues to, they continue to print money. And then what happens is it inflates an economy that's not based on true economic development and true job creation, which is manufacturing. Those are real jobs. They're sustainable. You make goods for your own country. Those goods are used, and then you make more goods, okay? But most of these jobs are being sent overseas. And that's why we're having this crisis. What printing the money does, it just increases the ability to service goods that are coming from overseas, okay? And service a service sector economy, all right? Real estate, inflating prices like that, and keeping interest rates low. And meanwhile, true production, true economic growth is being hemorrhaged out of this country. We are hemorrhaging manufacturing jobs. And, with those manufacturing jobs comes a tax base. And the government doesn't collect enough taxes that they should be collecting if we had a strong manufacturing economy, and we don't, and that is the reason. And it's funny, I've been reading in the media saying, oh, we need high-end manufacturing jobs. I was reading this column about jet engines that are being made here, and they're increasing production, and they're making money, they're doing well, innovations, and there's companies like Apple Computer, which is a very successful company, and they're doing well. But it's not just the high-end manufacturing jobs. We need all manufacturing jobs. We need to bring back jobs where you make clothing, textiles, furniture, sneakers, especially electronics, and we don't do that. We need that back in this country. And the way to do that is interest rates have to substantially rise, okay? People have to be encouraged to save rather than spend. And that means you have high interest. You have a stronger dollar. You get rid of the minimum wage laws because you have a stronger dollar. This way, people get paid less because the dollar buys more. You have sound money, which makes the currency even stronger, okay? And then we can create jobs here, rather than companies having to export them because they are willing to work for less. Okay, that's what we need to do. We have to open up trade schools rather than having all these colleges where a lot of people are just graduating with degrees that they can't use and learn things. Let me tell you something. I learned a lot of skills. And the reason I learned them is because I was working around people that were doing real work. I learned car mechanics, I learned carpentry, I learned how to use electrical, I learned how to do a lot of things working with my hands, okay? And these are real skills that you can use, you know, to make things, to create things. And it's just like that. It's similar to people working in machinery, to working with machines to make things, just like they're doing overseas in Asia. So what people have to do is learn real skills in a real job place, whether they're high-end, low-end, making things, all right? Good products, quality products like this country used to make, and then Americans can consume them, and we could be self-sustaining and not have all this debt and huge trade deficits. And then there's a tax base along with that, okay? See, that's really what has to be promoted here. It's not just a matter of government telling what the market should do. Government doesn't do any jobs. You know, they don't actually work. They don't make things. They don't produce things. They just set monetary policy. Monetary policy has to be met with a producer economy. And that's not happening now. You know, we're hemorrhaging all these jobs. And that's the reason. So it's funny how the media says, oh, why don't they focus on jobs? Well, it's the policies of the government why the jobs are not staying in this country. The monetary policy has to meet a criteria where companies, okay, would be willing to hire people more if they didn't have these minimum wage laws, if we had a stronger dollar, okay, and if we brought back manufacturing jobs to this country. People don't know how to use things, machinery to make things, whether it's on a higher end scale, like I mentioned before, or lower end scale. And that's the real reason why we have this. So it's not just, and the thing is, you know, it's all these fair taxes the governments are using. Like, we're not going to be able to pay out the Social Security checks. We're going to default. You know, I mean, that's not going to work, because we owe so much money to these creditors. I mean, if they're using that type of language, it's a really dangerous thing, because, you know, we owe them so much money already, and how much more money are they going to lend out? So the government is going to have to make up its mind. And here's something else I wanted to mention. It's really interesting. Politicians and a lot of people in the media, you know, they're using this expression, kick the can down the road. And I'm like, you know, what kind of expression is that? Kick the can down the road. I mean, to me, it sounds like a very meager expression. It's not something that has any urgency to it. Kick the can down the road is your wife. Your wife, she tells you, paint the house, right? So you're like, well, you know, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. Or, you know, take out the garbage. Well, maybe in a couple hours. I really don't want to do that now. That's procrastination. That's kicking the can down the road. This is very serious. Raising the debt ceiling, all right, is a very serious matter. Because what it means is, you know, we have this huge debt, okay, and we can't pay it back. You know, we have this huge debt, and the debt just continues to go up. It goes higher and higher and higher, and they have to print more money. The inflation is already very high. Like I mentioned, prices are just going up. There are prices, there are commodities that are making all-time highs. So, you know, the real expression is that they're adding speed to a freight train that's ready for a sudden impact. You know, that's what it is. So the more stimulus, the faster the train, and the bigger the crash. That's a proper analogy, because that really describes what's going on over here. But they use kicking the can down the road. You know, it has to stop now. And they're talking about raising the debt ceiling. And what if they do it? What good is it? What is it, another $2 trillion? So what in a few years when they reach that ceiling, right? They're going to think, do it, raise it again. It's more inflation. I mean, how much could they do? You saw what happened in the 70s, right? With inflation. Inflation is devastating. The bottom line is, to all you Keynesians out there who believe in Keynesian economics, inflation trumps stimulus. That's the bottom line. All right? The short-term gain of stimulus is not worth the inflation headaches. We saw in the 70s with stagflation. I mean, you had record gas prices. I mean, economy was just devastating in the 70s. It was just a terrible time. And, you know, you had soaring interest rates. And the problem is that you can't continue to do this. The time is now, and it has to be stopped. And the way to do it is to cut spending. All right? They have to cut spending substantially. A lot of these entitlement programs have to be cut. And, you know, they talk, like how they say, oh, yeah, over 10 years, we're going to compromise and make certain cuts. But that's not going to work, because, you know, we have more and more expenditures. There's more people retiring. There's more money that has to be handed out in healthcare and the Department of Education and all these other programs that they have. You know, whether they cut them entirely or they cut some of them, they have to do something substantial. And then, of course, the whole way the economy runs has to be changed. We have to have a legitimate economy, which is based on manufacturing. That is the real key over here to this whole issue, is the manufacturing base of this country. And the more manufacturing jobs we lose, the worse the situation is going to get. Anyway, that's the perspective of the think tank. We'd like to know your perspective. Please leave your comments, and thank you for tuning in.